right, Luke Creel, you're on.
All right. Could you present the?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Maybe some of you remember me from before I left. My name's Luke Creel, and last year I went on foreign exchange to the beautiful country of Chile. So I'm just going to give a quick presentation of, yeah, it was super awesome. So I'll just give a presentation of what I did, what my life was like while I was there. And then hopefully you guys can get an idea of what a foreign exchange year is like and why it's so important that we continue with the program within Rotary. So I just want to give a
Change your mics up real quick. Here we go.
So, yeah. And then Chile today, as I said, it's one of the most economically and socially stable nations in Latin America, and it leads Latin America in everything that's important in competitiveness, per capita income, globalization, peace, and economic freedom. It was a founding member of the United Nations, so and it's also one of the U.S.'s main allies in dealing with anything that's going on in South America. So that's all the drug cartels in South America, general political instability. The U.S. works a lot with Chile in order to deal with that kind of thing. And then we have a little tidbit here about Gabriel Boric. He's about to lose the next election, so we won't really talk about him too much because he doesn't matter anymore. And then here's some places I've been. Santiago, that's the capital. We have El Quisco, Rapa Nui, that's actually Easter Island in the native language, the Indonesian native language of that island, which is actually a territory of Chile, which most people don't know. And then most of these towns are various beaches and lake towns. This was originally a presentation I gave in Chile, so these places meant something to those people, but you guys wouldn't know. So next slide. And then here's my school. I went to two schools actually, but this is my favorite. It was a public Catholic school, which was very unique for me because I'm not a Catholic. So you can see that's me right there. I was St. John. We did a whole play about the crucifixion of Jesus. It was super awesome. It was a lot of fun. And I got to get really close with a lot of the people in my school. And while at my school, I actually started an English tutoring club. I discovered there was a lot of interest in speaking to me because I was a native speaker. People really wanted to learn English and they wanted to learn about America and other cultures that speak English. So in this English club, I would construct a lesson about maybe different accents, about how they talk in Britain or Australia versus America, or how contractions work. And we would go over that lesson. And then I would sit down and do individual work with each of these people and really try to help them improve their English. And I started this club with a Danish friend of mine who also had excellent English. So, see, I'm working with the trouble students, I guess, people who really struggle with English. And she was on the other side of the room with 10 other students who spoke English fairly well. And then here we have a bunch of my friends that I made, people from Denmark, Canada, Germany, places around the United States. I met people from Czechoslovakia, from Russia, from all these crazy different parts. So, and then of course I have over here all my Chilean friends, and you can see that I met these people while traveling. This is in Patagonia. That's the desert in Atacama. This is the Chilean subway. This is Aranda Park somewhere, a famous mall. All of these people I met while I was enabled to travel around Chile because of my foreign exchange. So I got to hear all of their unique perspectives as a direct result of being able to do this program. And then we have my families. The families are obviously the most vital part of any foreign exchange, I think, because they govern your day to day. This is my first host family. I use this photo because my host dad was actually a photographer, a videographer, a director, and he actually got me into photography while I was on foreign exchange. So this is an excellent photo that I took and later gave to them as a gift, and they framed it. So that was awesome. My host mom also worked in with my host dad. She has a degree in fashion. She would do all the costumes and stuff like that. So, and then here's my second host family. She's actually my host mom, and she was the only part of my host family technically. Then we have the German girl that I stayed with, who stayed with us while I lived with Rosita, who's the name of my host mom, because there weren't enough host families in my district. So we actually lived together for 3 months. That was super fun and cool. She's actually from Germany, so she was probably the most German person I ever met. So we did have a lot of arguments, but in the end, I think it was a productive relationship. And then this is my youth exchange officer who worked hard to be close to me the whole exchange, took me on trips, made sure I always got the money that I needed to survive in my exchange. So, yeah. And then here are my pets. My first host family had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cats, which was pretty interesting. Very small house, a lot of hair, constant vacuuming. And it was ironic because my host dad is actually allergic to cats, but they just, every time they would see a stray cat, they would bring it in. And so they ended up with 5 of them. And then this is my host grandma's dog. She was probably my favorite dog that I met on my foreign exchange here, which is why I included her. So, go ahead. And then here are some of my travels. As I mentioned, I went to Easter Island. So here's our whole exchange group in front of the Maui on Easter Island and these beautiful beaches, which are always at the perfect temperature. The water's great. It's really a tropical paradise there. And it has this super unique culture as well, which we really got to experience firsthand. All of our guides were born there. They spoke the native language there, which, as I mentioned, is Rapa Nui. And we got to meet people our age when we visited a school in Easter Island. So it was super awesome. We really got to personally know what it was like, not just to be a tourist there, but to actually live there. Next slide. Here we have Patagonia. Patagonia is super famous in Chile. It's split between Chile and Argentina. And you can see we have these beautiful sweeping mountain ranges, and it's almost touches the Antarctica. So we have these big glaciers. So it's super cool. Next slide. Here's some more pictures of Patagonia. Again, some of the tallest and most beautiful mountains you'll ever see. I remember once while we were on that trip, I was actually standing there and just staring at the mountain for so long that the bus actually left while I was still there with the rest of my foreign exchange group, and I was just abandoned there. Fortunately, somebody noticed eventually, and they came back. And then it's also, we have penguins, and Chile is super interesting in terms of marine life. You have penguins, you have sea lions, and all of these other Arctic creatures which come up the Chilean coastline because it's actually cold enough in the water for them to survive, which makes it a very interesting contrast, I think. And then we have Atacama, another very famous part. It's in the north of Chile and Peru in that area. And we have these salt flats where flamingos live. They're super beautiful birds, super interesting. Fun fact, they're actually pink because of what they eat. They're not born that way. They're born white, and then they eat this algae, which turns them pink over time. And then this is a fox who broke onto the bus and stole bread out of everybody's backpacks, and then made a pretty impressive escape. So, next slide. No problem. Still in Atacama, we have, again, more salt flats, more flamingos. Here we have these beautiful geysers, which were really amazing to see. Here I am with some friends in front of a geyser, so that was awesome. Yeah, next slide.
What's the altitude there?
The altitude for the geysers, it was super high. It was something like 13,000 feet. We actually had a couple people, they were having trouble breathing. I remember I had one friend who asked me to give her a piggyback ride because she was having trouble walking. And I actually dropped her because the altitude was so bad that I couldn't breathe either. So yeah, it's super high up in the Atacama Desert pretty much the whole time. For somebody from Los Alamos, I think it's bearable. But when we went on this trip, I had been living at sea level for so long that I kind of lost my ability to survive at high altitude. So, and then my family actually came to visit me while I was in Chile, which was awesome. Here we are in front of a boat from the Chilean Armada, so that was super cool. And here's the view from our hotel, which was absolutely beautiful.
What's that city?
This is Santiago, the capital. Yeah, so that's all I have. Are there any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
So just to confirm, they put two kids in one house. You only had two host families, and they let your parents visit. By any chance, can the old white guys and other people run Rotary talk to him so that maybe our exchange program? Great experience. It sounds
Yeah.
more.
Only
Wow.
one of those is
Experience.
against the rules. Do you know which one?
That's not comforting.
Which one
The
is
family?
that?
The having two white families. He's supposed to have to by Rotary rules.
Yeah.
But you can put a student in a house with another student as long as they do not speak the same native language.
Okay.
So, and it does happen.
But it generally happens when there's not enough families to go around, which was the case here. Yeah.
How are the relations between the United States and Chile?
I would say they're pretty good. Of course, we have this new. I don't know if you guys saw, but the boat that got blown up for supposedly transporting drugs in the Caribbean, that's gonna bring up a couple issues because it's the U.S. basically saying, if there's drugs involved, we can blow people up without due process. So that's since Chile and the U.S. work together on drug cartels a lot, it's kind of an issue of national sovereignty. But overall, I would say their relationship is super good, and Chile is generally the base point for any operation in South America that has to do with diplomacy, with improving South American relations. And as I mentioned, they're a member of the United Nations. So it's not just the US that interacts with them, but also the rest of the world. Yeah.
You have given a very interesting talk and helped share a little bit about the background of Chile, its history and everything. I was wondering about your experiences in school at
Yeah.
Chile. So what was it like to attend school there? What kind of courses did you take? Were there any like after school activities like sports or clubs or things? You mentioned the English club.
Yeah, well, I think I actually went to two schools while I was in Chile. They were very different schools. The first one was it was mostly Republican students. It was a private school. And so it was very different from when I later went on to a public Catholic school, which personally I liked a lot better. But in both cases, the students were extremely friendly. People in Chile are some of the friendliest people you'll ever meet. They're super easy to talk to make friends with, and conversation just flows every time. Even in the beginning when I wasn't fluent, I found that Chilean people were very easy to talk to. And then I joined two sports. I did soccer and I did volleyball while I was there. It's a great way to make friends and build relationships to do sports when you're on foreign exchange. That's the advice I always give other people. If you're having trouble making friends, join a team, do something, join a club, and that's how you'll meet new people. But my experience at school was super awesome. It was super fun, very different from the U.S., much more relaxed, especially because there I went as a what you would call a senior here, which is their easiest year. The teachers don't take anything too seriously, so there's a lot of messing around in class, a lot of talking, and not too much school, which I really appreciated. So it was awesome. Yeah.
This may touch on, well, it's in the southern hemisphere,
Mhm.
right? So I'm just wondering, does that affect the school year? And then it is, Catholicism is strong in Chile.
Yeah, totally.
What's that like at Christmas time? Again, getting to the southern hemisphere,
Yeah.
when you don't have snow, which you may be used to.
Yeah, it was definitely super weird because the school year is flipped, like you said. So it's there, and obviously their summer is our winter. So I would say Christmas during summer was super weird. It was the 25th of December, and I was chilling out in the pool in my tropical paradise, and it was pretty strange. Yeah, but I would say that the actual tradition of Christmas is extremely similar. They still have Santa Claus. They still do all the gifts. The only thing is they tend to open them the night before versus the morning of, but they do that here in the U.S. too. So it's not that out of the norm. But I would say that mostly the actual tradition itself was very similar. It carried over pretty well. So yeah. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
How far, if you were to drive in a car from one end of Chile to the other, how long would it take?
So the way I like to put it in perspective is Chile is as long as the U.S. is wide. So it's super long. So I honestly couldn't tell you how long. I do remember I used to know that number at some point.
3,000 miles or so.
Well, the length of Chile, yeah, it's close to 3,000 miles. I don't know how long it would take you to drive that, but
But if you take a turn, you either get wet or run into mountains.
Yeah, pretty much. We had the coast on one side and these huge Andes mountains on the other. So it's really interesting geography in Chile as well, which is what leads to some of the interesting stuff we saw, like the geysers, like the salt flats, and all of this difference in climate where in the middle it's tropical paradise, at the top it's this complete desert, and the bottom it's practically Antarctica. So super interesting. Any other questions? Yeah.
Easter Island, I've heard those statues, they go down like 10 feet or 15 feet.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Well, the longest statue on Easter Island, I believe, is about 110 feet. So
And
there,
what, only the top 20 feet stick out or something?
it's built in. I got to see it in person, which was awesome. It's sort of they would carve them out of the mountain and then move them. So the biggest one was still being carved when this whole when Spain showed up and they took over and killed a lot of people and saved a lot of people, followed by a civil war within Easter Island, which killed off a lot of their population. But the largest one was being carved out of the mountain actively, and it's about 103 feet. So the Maui, they're supposed to be representations of important people. So every single the Rapa Nuian people believe that it represents their soul, and it's sort of a way of respecting the people who had the largest impact on their society. So it's super interesting. Every single statue that you see on Easter Island used to be a person, and the Rapa Nuians believe that's where their soul is now. Yeah.
So, what were some of your favorite foods? How did you find the food there?
I think the food was excellent. One thing that was really interesting is we live in New Mexico, so everybody here has probably had sopapillas, empanadas. And when I went to South America, I learned that all of these countries have their different version of the originally Spanish food. Personally, I prefer our sopapilla to the ones in Chile, but there's a lot of really good food and a lot of food from around South America. You have Peruvian food, you have Colombian food that they all, it consolidates in Chile.
Well, what was something that you wouldn't find here in New Mexico?
A food that you wouldn't find here in New Mexico? I'll take your question and then we'll go. I'll answer this, take yours, and then we'll go.
You can drop them off. I'm heading that direction.
Are you heading right now?
I will after I can ask him my question and talk.
All right, do that.
Okay, cool. I would say that something that was very uniquely Chilean is they have this flower. I forget what it's called, but it's almost like aloe vera, and you peel it back, and on the end of every leaf, there's this gel that you dip in lemon juice, and you eat the gel and discard the leaf. And you keep going all the way down this flower until you get to the core, which is all gel. And it's very interesting it's very tasty if you're into lemony kind of stuff, but it's definitely not something you would see anywhere else. Yeah. All right, thank you guys. I have to go. Yeah, I do have to.
When you get back to work,
Good luck.